Now we'll just introduce our guest joining us for this morning's discussion on news review. We are joined by he sometimes says she's Deputy Information Minister, but we are insisting. I like the Information Minister designate. Kojo Oppong Nkrumah joins us this morning on Breakfast Daily. Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast Daily.
Morning, Ike. Morning, Ziva.
How are you?
And we've also been joined by Rashid Pelpuo. He's the Member of Parliament for Wa Central. Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast Daily.
Good morning. Thank you.
So before we move on, the front page of the Chronicle, a statement was made by Spio Gabra, says he's furious that some MPs boycotted the launching of his campaign.
Were you there?
Or you were part of the...
No, I traveled. I just arrived. So I didn't know about it at all.
So that's your answer. When he says, where were you? He said, I'll ask, where were you? Okay, you traveled.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Now let's go on to Hope for the Youth Pioneers of NABCO start work.
Oh, no, but that was a joke, right?
Page 3 has the story. President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo yesterday lifted the curtain on a new graduate employment scheme, the Nation Builders Corps, NABCO, with the declaration that the stage was set for the restoration of hope and dignity to the youth. He said the scheme signified the commencement of banishing the spectre of desperation among the youth. And the government offered 100,000 job opportunities under the scheme, but 93,382 applicants who confirmed their acceptance out of the 99,811 selected applicants were commissioned into the work environment and NABCO at a ceremony at the Black Star Square. So it was good. It was a beautiful ceremony. We'll take initial comments, of course, from the Information Minister designate.
Yeah. And in your initial comments, if you can really help us understand what differentiates NABCO from YEA, that will help, because a lot of us are confused.
No, Jaffa, thank you. And good morning to the Honorable Pelpuo and to your viewers as well. NABCO is a graduate employment path program that has been designed to tackle about 3 major problems. That, for example, the youth employment and many of the other initiatives that we are bringing in to tackle the unemployment problem doesn't solve. The 3 problems are as such. 1, you have the regular graduate unemployment challenge. I mean, the World Bank in 2016 put statistics at about 48% of youth between the ages of 15 and 24 who don't have jobs. This is as at the time when our colleagues were leaving power, about 48%. If you look at the ISES statistics, for example, it suggests that only about 10% of graduates get a job within the first year by the time they leave school. And for the remainder, sometimes it takes as long as up to a decade before they get a job. So the graduate unemployment scourge is a dire one that needs to be tackled. You have a second-tier challenge where employers, both in the public and private sector, say employable skills, not just the theory we have learned in school, but employable skills is difficult to come by. People have studied things in schools, but they don't have employable skills. And because of the short learning curve in organizations, they usually want somebody who's got some 2-3 years working experience. And we've all complained about it for years gone by, but where would I get that experience if nobody hires me for the first time? And then you have a third level challenge where the public sector requires some efficiency and productivity. We've been under an IMF program that's literally put a ban on public sector recruitment as well. You only have limited space as we're improving, may I say, the finances of the country. So these 3 birds have literally to be shot down. NABCO is a single bullet that allows us to onboard at least about 100,000 in this first cohort graduates, many of whom, and if you look at the numbers, some have been home for 5 years, 6 years, 2 years, 3 years. About 100,000 of them. We know that that's not the end, that's not the permanent solution, but that's 100,000 people less, 100,000 households, 100,000 families that we are impacting with this program. They have an opportunity to, over the next 3 years, work and onboard skills, employable skills, and in collaboration with COTVET and some of the academic institutions, part of their training modules also seek to give them these employable skills and on-the-job training for the various areas that they have been put, each of these 7 modules. During the same period as well, they earn a stipend, a take-home of about 700 Ghana cedis. And then you have a third level benefit of these public sector institutions get a bump in efficiency and productivity because these young persons are there. And most importantly, we have a clear 3-channel exit path that makes sure that people really exit, and people exit into the world of sustainable or permanent work. So it is an interesting program. It is a program which is one of the about 3 channels that we are using to reduce the unemployment problem that we inherited when we assumed the reins.
Can you touch on the exit path again? How is
this
exit?
So there are 3 exit paths. There are those who will exit into the public services themselves, and that's why we encourage them, and the president admonished them to take their work seriously, to ensure that the assessments are properly done, so that as we improve the general economic situation, improve fiscal space, get out of the IMF program, and have opportunity to recruit in the public services, these ones who already have on-the-job skills because they've participated in this NABCO program, they become an attractive cohort as a first step. So some of them will stay in the public services and in the places where they are working as opportunities open up there. You then have those who, through the National Entrepreneurship and Innovative Program and other programs, will be literally capitalized and assisted to go out there and become employers on their own. They will venture out there into the private sector and become employers on their own. And then you have those who have an opportunity to become, for want of a better expression, subcontractors to the areas they are working. And this morning I was given an example that if I'm a NABCO trainee, and let's say I'm working with Revenue Ghana in my district, Achimansa district, and I work with them on modules of raising local revenue. And by the time we are done, I'm not being onboarded into the local revenue agency. I'm not being capitalized under NABE. I have the 3rd channel where I can be empowered to become a subcontractor to the assembly for the purpose of revenue mobilization. The same job that I was doing. I just am not on their payroll. Now I do that same job. I earn a commission on it. The assembly gets something out of it. And as we phase people out through these channels, we have an opportunity also to onboard and expand the NABCO cohorts as the years go by. And in so doing, we bridge that gap between the theory that people have learned from school and exit with certificates and end up with unemployment, and the world of work, which is also demanding some things of our young ones. And we believe that there's a good bridge between the 2 mountains.
Okay. Now, those who, she mentioned YEA, and YEA did or does cater for both graduate and non-graduate, unemployed people. So why didn't we just expand?
The YEA module mostly deals with non-white collar jobs. As I'm sure you're followed, it deals mostly with non-white collar jobs in many of the non-skilled areas. If you look at a lot of the YEA modules, it's a lot of non-white collar jobs, non-skilled jobs. You need, and taking care of graduates in a skilled formal environment is very different from what pertains in the YEA exercise. And that's why the administration of the view that we need a dedicated enterprise to look at this, to attend to them. Even their monitoring and evaluation mechanisms are very different. We have online monitoring and evaluation mechanisms where they clock in, where their supervisors are filling updates, where at the national level you're having an opportunity to see and appraise. And that's why the president says everybody will have to earn that 700 Ghana.
So instead of making amendments to the YEA arrangement, it was more proper to start a whole new...
Because it is a very different cohort that requires different kind of attention and a different focus to take care of the graduate unemployment problem in this country.
Okay, but then the modules under YEA had agriculture, which is no different from Feed Ghana to me, health, which is no different from Heal Ghana, education, Educate Ghana, law and order, which is similar to Civic Ghana, if I may say. So it looks as though the only thing that's different is probably digitize Ghana, if we're going to compare the modules under YEA and the modules under NABCO.
So you are looking at the sectors.
What's the difference?
Yes,
yeah.
and so you are looking at the sectors. So there's an agric sector, and your argument is that you see an agric sector in YEA and an agric sector in NABCO. But the question is, what do the modules entail? In NABCO, you have people who have academic training in agriculture. Remember, at the time of onboarding, we said you must pick a module that you have the academic background in. You have all of these young men and women who've studied agriculture, whether it's from Kwadaso or from Cape Coast University or wherever, who are not being employed anywhere else. These persons are being recruited, not, for example, as pollination officers or may I say, persons who are assisting in fertilizer distribution, etc. These persons are being employed as agric extension support officers. It's a very different category, requires a certain high level of understanding, as in the theoretical and empirical understanding of agriculture and the participation in that space. If you take, for example, education, okay, while some people may be brought into non-teaching assistants, work here, in Educate Ghana, we are focusing on two things: STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And these are people who have been trained in education, who are coming in to augment the teaching class. You also have a focus on TVET, technical vocational education as well. And it's very different from what you find in the YE model. So if you look at it by sector, you probably say, it's
the same thing.
It's the same thing. But if you get into the details and try and understand what is it that they are doing and how is their outcome being measured, and how are they being managed separately from these enterprises?
So in Educate Ghana, they'll focus on STEM. And the YA model focuses on?
They are mostly, non-teaching support staff that, support the non-teaching
support staff, like, for example?
When you go into the schools, you have the teaching staff, and then you have the non-teaching staff. You have
like
those
the
who are...
and stuff?
No. I mean, the non-teaching staff are people who are working in areas other than the teaching.
So under YA, those working in the education sector,
they are not in the teaching cohort.
Okay.
You will find them in other cohorts. But here, you have dedicated attention to STEM, for example, which is a very technical area. Like I mentioned, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. These are very specialized areas that you are putting.
And I assume that will be similar for the health sector as well.
Yes, exactly.
So the health sector, those under YA
for example, you don't have nurses under YA. And if you go into a hospital, you know what everybody has the warrant or the permission to do or not to do. In this cohort, you have nurses, you have auxiliary health assistants who therefore are able to perform some functions very different from this one. And the way you measure the outcomes and take care of them is very different. If you take Digitize Ghana, for example, we are rolling out a number of digitization programs, whether it's from online passport or birth and death, etc., or the digital property
we'll go through the rest of them,
system.
But let's bring Honorable in here. Honorable, I was reading something from you online. It says you were talking about the NYEP. You mentioned we're going to have youth in eco brigade, youth in afforestation, youth in film industry. It's kind of similar to what Kojo is saying right now, right? Geared towards solving unemployment, but yet here we are again, another government in power. We're talking about the same old things. What's your take on NABCO?
Well, good morning. I think that NABCO is the same as the youth employment program, but now decorated in another version because of the nomenclature, the naming of it. Other than that, it's the same models, the same approach. This time, they have decided to segment it and focus only on graduates. Otherwise, it's in the NYP, it starts from JSS, SS, university graduates, teachers, everybody was involved to solve the employment problem. And each of them was given an area suitable to their training. And including teachers, including graduates who were unemployed.
Were they actually teaching or they were just cleaning?
They were teaching. There are instances where secondary schools will even apply to NYE offices for graduates to come in on their program, because how long will somebody wait for finance to clear them before they start teaching? If there's a vacancy. So these were opportunities for them to transit into the courses, the areas of their strength and skill.
Did you also focus on science, technology, engineering, and math, for example?
Yeah, all of them. You come into NYEP with the kind of skill you have.
Okay.
It is not government who will completely define it for you. There are areas.
Okay.
And those areas, if you come into agriculture and you have scientific background, then you go into the area of agriculture that will require research. So we take you there as youth employment, and you go assist there. So you come in, and with the kind of skill you have, you are defined and given specific role to play. And I would have wished that this is not a situation where we say we have employed 100,000 people and it's counted among the statistics of people who are employed.
Why?
Of course, there's hope for the youth, but there's no dignity. The dignity comes when they are earning according to their training. If you are a graduate and you know that your fellow graduate is taking 1,500, you also earn 1,500.
Like the nurses have been saying.
Be able to take care of your family, be able to live worthy lives, and etc., etc. Let us say that this is a training ground. This is a transiting point where your unemployment is temporarily postponed. You know, because then within the 3 years, you'll be earning about 700,000 cedis to be able to take you to work, you know, hoping that in the end you will get real job and stay in it and be able to take care of yourself and your dependents.
700 cedis, not 700,000.
700 cedis, yeah, 700 cedis. So it shouldn't have been a situation where government is jubilating about it.
But you know, absent the 700 cedis, they would not have been earning anything at all.
Pardon?
Absent that 700 cedis, they would not have been earning anything at all. The picture
No, I'm not talking
that
about
the
the absence of it.
Minister is painting appears to be, you know what, this is a training program where the 700 cedis is more or less a stipend. So absent that
Who said
arrangement, that's what the information minister
But that's not what the idea is all about.
Because they even
the idea is
refer to
about
as
the time
NABCO
has not
trainings.
come. They have gotten the
We
people
have
the
solved
jobs.
the unemployment issues.
Youth have hope and dignity,
Yeah.
and that they are counting it among the number of employment they have created for young people. You don't
And
create
it's really not
employment
employment.
by going to take money from consolidated fund and splash on young people. 3 years later, you go to take and eventually when your fiscal space is narrowed and you can't do anything about it, they are chasing you everywhere and asking you to pay, and you cannot find the money to pay. Yeah. My good friend Kojo is very good. He will now come and explain and help everybody out of the situation.
No, but
Okay, so speaking of the money.
the people are working.
Yeah.
They are not being given money for free. They are working. So, for instance, with those who are going to work with the GRA, for instance, they are going to help, you know, collect more taxes, which will improve their revenue of the country back into the consolidated fund.
But Wilberforce.
And nobody is saying they are not going to do some work. If you define work will happen. It's the job component that we are complaining about.
Yeah. So
see.
Honorable, let me just go to Kojo. A couple of weeks ago, we heard that youth in afforestation were complaining that for the past 4 months they've not been paid. Right. A couple of
NIA
months
as
ago.
well.
Yes, NIA. And even national. National service people have also been complaining that their pays are late. Nurses were also complaining that they didn't want to be part of NABCO. They are kind of being forced to be in it because they don't have any other option. No one is forcing them, but
it's an option.
it's an option, right? They don't have a lot of options right now. So how secure should a young person be that, yes, we all showed up yesterday, we celebrated, but our peers who are in current programs are not even being paid, and they are being asked to be patient after 4 months. What's the way forward? It looks as though, government should have planned all this ahead of time before enrolling us.
So let me quickly respond to a couple of things, and then I'll deal with your question. My good friend, the Honorable Pelpuo, says that there is hope, but there's no dignity. I beg to differ. At least a good chunk of this 100,000 young persons who have been commissioned as at yesterday, persons who, minus this program, would literally be sitting unemployed and at home and still depending on their parents. I had the opportunity of visiting some of the interview centers when the interviews were going on. You have people who have been catered for by their parents for the last 4 years in university. They've struggled, sometimes mortgaged their cocoa farms and their property to pay those fees. And then when they graduate, while they are hoping that these kids would now get a job and even support them, the parents still have to find money and take care of their graduate wards who are sitting at home. Many of these young ones are people who were home when my good friend, the Honorable Pelpuo, and his team were in power. We did not see any mechanism that at least give them, in his words, hope minus dignity. We have a mechanism today that ensures that...
A temporary mechanism.
We have a mechanism today that ensures that they are not sitting at home still waiting for their parents or waiting for somebody to after paying their school fees, take care of them. And I think dignity is when you have an opportunity to engage in an economic activity and get paid something for it. My first earning when I started working at Multimedia, in today's terms, will be just about 40 Ghana cedis. Nobody starts off by earning their peak or what they desire. You start off at the bottom end of the employment rack and you work your way up to the top. And I think that this gives them both hope and dignity. And as I mentioned earlier, these are persons who were home when my good friend and his team were in power. At least, if they had tried something like this, they'll be one step off the ladder. You don't leave these persons sitting out there complaining, racking up to a 48% statistic, and then when somebody attempts to take at least 100,000 of them off the streets, you say that's not good enough. It should have been added to
people have criticized the government that this solution is just temporary, and if you had just apply this fund to the private sector and allow the private sector to employ these guys, then it will be more sustainable. Because employing someone for 3 years, after 3 years, what's going to happen to them?
That argument will hold, assuming that this is the only thing we are doing, and we are not doing anything in the private sector area.
Okay,
this is a complement to what is going on in the private sector area. There's a stimulus package that's going on there. There's a 1D1F program that's going on there. You have an improved macro situation, improved situation in the financial services sector, so that as a result, you are beginning to see
What's
industry...
actually going on with 1D1F? Because we did hear in the manifesto that we're going to go from production to taxation.
No,
and as
we're
it stands
going to go
right now,
from
taxation
to productivity.
Yes. Exactly.
To
And we haven't heard much about
to,
the 1D1F to help with the producing bit, because we do need revenue internally.
There's been a lot that has been said. We were internally with the National Policy Summit to give the latest numbers. I did a press briefing just last week on that one. But let me just wrap up on this point. So this is not the only thing that is being done. You are also having investment in the private sector space, and that's why you're seeing expansion in the private sector space, and the numbers speak for themselves. Now, my senior a few years ago, and I just got the recording this morning on Newsfile, when he was talking about jobs, was making the argument that, as for jobs, the jobs will be there. In fact, today he alluded to it, the jobs will be there. And he gave 2 examples of jobs. And he said, you could, for example, cut grass, bag it, and sell it to people. That's a job. He said, for example, you could find stones, crack them, and over a 2-week period, you will get 1 trip or 2 trips of stones and sell it. That's a job. I have the video here. I could give it to you.
No, it's okay. It's not
no, but the point
you
I'm
want
making
to relate
is
that to a statement on dignity?
So this rather is a program that offers people hope and dignity.
Okay.
Now to the specific of your question.
We'll get your response on that particular one, so we'll go for a quick break right now. News Review continues. Remember to send your comments with the hashtag Breakfast Daily on all social media platforms and a WhatsApp line.
0550-585-832. We'll be right back.
City TV is live. City TV is a free-to-air digital channel. On a digital TV, please press menu on your remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a multi-TV digibox. Tune into City TV and experience your world. City TV, it's your world.
Welcome back. This is Breakfast Daily on City TV. Now, before the break, we were discussing NABCO, right?
Yes.
Yesterday was the maiden NABCO kicking off, and there was a big celebration.
Yes, and now there's been an issue of dignity of the workers, and I was wondering exactly what was happening yesterday. It seems the 100,000 trainees were called there. Some would argue, some would say it seems a bit of a cosmetic effect to have a lot of people there. As to why exactly the 100,000 people were asked to come there, because the message that was sent to the trainees is this, and I'm quoting: "Good morning, NABCO trainee. This is a reminder of the invitation to NABCO passing out ceremony. Venue Black Star Square, Accra. Date Wednesday, October 17, 2018. Time 7 a.m. Guest of honor, His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Validation for institutional placement will commence on arrival from 6 a.m. So they were really upset that they were asked to come there at 6 a.m. for some form of validation, but they got there and absolutely nothing happened. The place was,
You see, this part of the dishonest approach to job creation that we are talking about. When they campaign, before they were elected into office, they talk about expanding the private sector. They talk about investment, increased investment. They talk about creating opportunities for young people and creating jobs, only for them to now do the lazy work by going to take monies, taxpayers' monies, and do what they are doing and say it is jobs. It's not jobs. It has to be very clear. If they want to say it's training grounds for them to in future get into jobs, then it's good. the Ghanaian graduate is worth more than 700 Ghana cedis a month.
But you give him zero.
And
Kojo.
Yes. And so you said you
Honorable
create jobs,
yeah.
and you failed. It's part of and I said that they are just postponing the unemployment. Yeah. Wait until after 3 years.
But he discussed 3
it might not even
strategies.
get to the 3 years. Because in 2 years, they may be exiting.
Yeah.
The challenge we have...
So you mean if there's a change in government, you would
What's
abrogate or
no,
terminate
no,
the
I'm
NABCO
saying
program? So
they
it
will
still
not be
3
running
years.
it for 3 years.
Yeah, yeah.
They will only run it for a specific period of time. In fact, they are doing this because getting to the election time, they are very sure that 100,000 votes will get to them.
Oh,
they may be
that's a bit of a
surprised.
stretch, Honorable.
Let me tell you something. He made a clear example. He gave an example of some pronouncements I made on Newsfile. I'm so sad that he's one of the few people, or the many people, who decided to twist and play mischief with what I said. And I like him. He said he'll give you the video.
Yes.
I said, in the discussion was about unskilled labor, where they're going to get jobs. And I said, I had just had a discussion with a friend, a management official, who told me that when people are unemployed, they could still work. It's a matter of knowing what to do at what point in time. And I cited a situation where you can have a place where people are rearing animals, they want grass, they don't find it in the city. You could cut it and bring it and give to them. And then you get a job. And I cited another example of builders, people who are building construction work. If you are there and you want to be employed and you have no skill at all, you can gather stones and then they will buy.
So you are not relating to graduates?
No, not at all. He knew about it. He
Just
wants to
making
play
use of your skill set.
And
to get
those are the examples. And I even was quoting somebody. And then they picked it up. MPP, every platform. They'll go and look for a picture where I'm looking very, very miserable and say, the man says, go and do.
But you're talking about dignity.
Let me get to the point. Let me get to the point.
Wrap up, please.
So this is mischief they are creating with it. And it won't divert our attention from the fact that they have failed in their bid to create jobs for the people of Ghana. And they are using the lazy way of just going to increase dependency on the consolidated fund.
Honorable, to be fair, there are many people who have sought jobs at private companies, graduates who are earning less than 700 cedis.
I have told you
so
that.
How have they failed if they are paying?
I have told you
700
that.
cedis?
It is not all bad when you talk about the NABCO. It's not all bad, but it is a failed promise modified, and that's what I'm saying. It's a failed promise that has been intervened, that has that has created an intervention for them to do what they are doing now. And what I'm foreseeing is that in the very near future, they will find it very, very difficult to sustain this. Because, look, imagine one district, one factory, they have failed to do it. One village, one dam, they have failed to do
1
it.
million,
1 million for constituency, they have failed to do it. And now they are creating another situation of expenditure, which is also going to be heavy on the economy. So they know what to spend. They imagine what they can spend, but they cannot create what it's worth in the economy for them to spend it. So that's where the problem is. So in fact, let me end up by saying that if I had cited an example and said that, look, if you go to a place where a lot of people need car renting because it's a tourist area, you could go and put cars there so that people can come and hire. It's job. Or if you go to a place where you need some kind of fabric to buy, and then you can go and buy fabric in Makola and send it to that location. You see that people are going to buy. Nobody would have raised an issue. But once I talk about stones and I talk about grass, then the other people who look down upon said jobs pick it up.
They didn't look down on
They
it.
pick it
But
up.
Honorable, we have to wrap you up. We'll wrap you up so that Kojo has a lot to respond to.
You have spoken about
in a few days' time,
30 seconds,
just
please.
like a few days ago, I was speaking at the current International Conference Center about job creation. When I raised this issue and I explained it, and I can tell you and swear to it, people
let's just wrap up.
People came to me and said, I'm going to take that model up.
Wow.
and I'll let you know what I have achieved out of it.
Okay.
Two
Thank
people
you.
from Tamale said they are going to take up the grass issue.
Okay.
And
the
then the
stone
others
issue.
Thank you very
also
much.
said they are going to set up
The stone.
the ones that are on.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we didn't get that part in recording.
Yeah.
Now, let's take a look at, read a few messages before we go on. Good morning. I'm a graduate who applied for NABCO in the Educate Ghana model. Last 2 months, GAS declared vacancies which will be used to teach the double-track students. Can I stop the NABCO few weeks? He said he wondering whether I can stop the NABCO a few weeks after he has started so that he can move to GES. So you can know that question now, Honorable.
And somebody else also said, Evelyn from Dome says, good morning, Jifa and Ike. I always love your show. Please, we don't even know where we are going after all the pass-out notice, all the pass-out noise. Posting is not yet out, so we are home. Please clear off the headline that 100,000 pioneers start work.
Okay.
We are home. So
There
that's
was a similar statement here. Good morning, Wilberforce and team. Please kindly ask the Honorable Information Minister designate when are we starting work, because we haven't received our placement yet. Thank you.
Yeah, and another person says, ask the minister whether we are going to be paid for this month since it was stated in our contract. I ask this because we have not been placed yet and no work has begun for us.
Yes, I saw the contract. It says 1st October.
Yeah.
That was when the contract was to start.
Yeah, so
Anyway.
a lot of people are asking when they will
Yeah.
be placed, actually.
Okay, so
Can I respond to
Haven't been
those?
placed, haven't been placed, haven't been placed. Yes, you can respond. But before that, Kofi Adams was speaking. Kofi Adams is the national organizer of the NDC.
yes.
And he said on our show yesterday, why the rush in changing and renaming things? This is creating its own bureaucracy and wasting so much. That is my worry, aside from the worry that these professionals who feel that there is space and opportunity, this bureaucracy that is taking so much from our coffers. So he was pretty much saying, on the one hand, we're saying Ghana, times are hard, XYZ, yet we are renaming things and creating bureaucracy around it. That may
NABCO is
be
not a
necessary.
renaming of any existing program, as
Okay.
I've been at pains to explain. It's a dedicated program that deals with the graduate unemployment challenge. And my conversation with Honorable earlier was on the point of dignity. He started off by saying that this gives hope but doesn't give dignity. And I referred him to his conversation about what he considered jobs. And I imagine that he considered that those were jobs with dignity. And I'm making the point to you that this is a program that offers both jobs and dignity. And I've given you the video. You can play it to your viewers
And
to see if the context he chooses to change today is what he was
Please,
setting.
And one last thing to
Play.
respond
I want you to
to.
play.
Adekoka also
Let's-
said
but
something.
play.
He
But
said,
I'm giving you the
let's
video.
move on.
He's insisting
There's
that you can
another-
play the
there's
mystery.
another-
You can play
there's
that
another
one.
minute-
He's insisting
You can play that
Chairman
one.
Adekoka
Pursuing
also
the
said,
mischief.
we have been here before. These jobs are not sustainable jobs. How long
And
are
this
these
is
youth going to
exactly
have?
what they said when President Kufuor introduced the first program.
employment.
That was the youth employment program. They said it was unsustainable. Money would not be found to
But
take
if these
care of it.
programs are
If I may-
sustainable, we've
if I
had
may-
them over
if
and
I
over
may-
again,
if I-
and we're still unemployed.
Because these are programs.
Okay.
These are programs that are run by the state. And if indeed these programs were so bad, I would have imagined that when they had the opportunity to run affairs in this country for 8 years, they would have stopped it. Indeed, it was during that period that you now had we in the NPP administration who introduced the program. You didn't hear of the levels of challenges that sometimes ended up in court, etc.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too
Yes,
far
we don't
into
have
those
to go
areas.
there.
Yes, but for those who said that it was unsustainable, it was a lazy way. Indeed, that was the same expression, and I think I've heard my senior use that expression. That it was a lazy attempt to create jobs. The NPP administration at the time had failed in creating jobs and had resorted to this method. It's the same arguments that they had rehashed today. But yet, when they came to power, you notice that they now try to milk it for what it was worth, and it led to all of its problems.
Okay.
For those who've been given contracts, these about 100,000 people who have contracts that start from the 1st of October. I am informed that we're going to abide by the terms of that contract.
Okay.
Indeed, yesterday the president mentioned, the national coordinator mentioned that after yesterday's commissioning, you go back to your district offices, and now the district coordinators are going to do the final placements in the various offices. So, for example, if you are in Educate Ghana, you may be working with the STEM channel, you may be working with the TVET channel. You go back to your district office. Your district coordinators are going to now hand you over to, for example, the district education office, and they are going to put you in a particular channel that you are working. And it works the same for the various.
So from yesterday, all they have to do is to go to their district
They're going to have to
offices
go back to
with
their
their forms,
district
their letters.
offices. Yes, they're going to go
Okay.
back to their district offices. And it was very well articulated that you go back to your district offices and your district coordinators are going to place you in the various areas. I think that this is a good program, just like the YE, just like other programs that have been introduced to tackle some of our challenges. It solves a number of critical problems. I think what we should do is to encourage the government of Ghana, regardless of whoever, as YE has proven, that regardless of whoever is in power, the government of Ghana has to efficiently deliver these programs. I think what we have to do is to encourage the government of Ghana to focus and succeed on the program, to ensure that persons who have been contracted under the program get their due and perform accordingly.
Finally, I think we can move on to but before, I just want an assurance from you that since yesterday, any person, any NABCO trainee or all NABCO trainees can go to their various districts. It's open for them to go to. If they go to their various districts this morning, right now, after hearing you, they would be placed in whichever sector they decided to select.
I'm going to repeat to you the instruction that was given yesterday at the commissioning.
Okay. That
subsequent to this commissioning, you go back to your district offices and your district coordinators will place you in the specific offices where you are working. That's the instruction that was given yesterday, and I repeat it to you this morning.
Fantastic, because a lot of people were wondering when they are to start. Anyway.
And while we get the next story, my last question for you. We've had NYEP under Kufuor, Jeddah under Mills, YE under Mahama, and now we are going through NABCO. What's the light at the end of the tunnel that we won't go through this again 4 years from now?
So it's not exactly the same. NYEP under Kufuor is what was renamed by Mills as Jeddah and subsequently as YEA.
And then now we are NABCO.
NABCO is a different program altogether. It is not a renaming of NYE or Jeddah or YE. It's a different program altogether, which deals with the graduate unemployment problem. But I've told you that it's one out of about 3 major strategies we are using to reduce the unemployment challenge that we inherited as a government. And I gave you the baseline statistics at the time that we inherited. You have the general expansion of the economy. If you look at the 2017 numbers, 11 out of the 20 subsectors of our economy experienced higher growth than what had been happening in the year before. And we are all aware that as you are getting growth up and expansion taking place, you get more people getting into the system. But even we from the center right of politics are clear in our minds that this trickle-down economics, if you look at how many people are getting into the job world, and if you compare it to the rate of expansion that we have brought back, you will still have, some persons who are slipping into the unemployment bracket. So while you do that, and while you are seeing an uptick in 11 out of the 20, subsectors of our economy, you then go further to introduce a program like this, NABCO, which tackles a particular cohort, that is the graduate bit. In the 2019 budget, you will see a third arm rolled out, which seeks to use policy and legislation to create markets and to create opportunity for private sector to service those markets, and the fees and charges levy allow for compensation between the market and then the private sector that are playing in that space.
Fantastic. Okay, now move on to our next story. It says, I'm reading from City Newsroom. Yes, you get a chance to comment. I just want to introduce the next story, and in your submission, you can comment on something you said. So Ghanaians, I'm reading from citynewsroom.com, says Ghanaians to pay more for MTN and Vodafone and Airtel Tigo as well from November 1. So Ghanaians will, from the first day of November, start paying more for the services rendered by the telecommunication networks operating in the country. So Airtel Tigo, MTN and Vodafone say they are adjusting their tariffs upward. So it's not there's not a possibility of them coming down on same. So they go on to say that the government, as part of the 2018 this from the Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications, which made the announcement in a statement yesterday. It says the government, as part of the 2018 media review of the budget, amended the acts referenced above. So I think the NHIL, the GETFL, and VAT levy. So it goes on to say that the objective was to give effect to the conversion of NHIL and GETFL into levies that are not subject to the input-output mechanism, and delinking them from VAT by removing the option of input tax deductibility, thereby giving both levies a unique and different legal identity and distinguished from VAT. Now, our members who are responsible corporate entities would comply fully with Ghana's laws and ensure the distinction between VAT and the new levies emanating from their separate origins and bases in the law. As intended, the Incidence of the 2 new levies will thus be on consumers and will result in the increase of the cost of telecommunications services. So this is the statement from the Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications. So it's bottom line fact and truth that, telecommunication tariffs, more or less, or charges then would go up.
And this is very confusing because earlier this year, I think around June, the finance minister said government will not increase VAT rate. So I think a lot of us are...
I think the position, yes, government was clearly saying that it should not affect prices of anything.
The consumers, yes, right?
But
So we're confused about what's happening. We'll start with you, Honorable.
Well, next time it's better we finish one area of discussion.
Sorry, Honorable. Let's finish it. Go ahead, touch on it, please.
Yeah, okay. But the truth about what he's saying is that we are going to be stuck in the very near future. In 2 months, you will still find young people here calling you and asking you about their placement, about their pay, and etc., etc.
Okay.
This is a government that acts on impulses. You see, for example, they will tell you, we're going to do NABCO. But the plan to the letter, to the nitty-gritty, which will enable them to implement it fully, doesn't exist.
How do you come by
and
that?
Then you will see them going into it and then finding problems. Take the example of the free senior high. And then the fact that they didn't even know how it's going to look like, how it was going to look like in 2-3 years. Only for them to find that there will be lack of infrastructure, no money to feed students, lack of teachers, lack of furniture, inputs, etc.
I don't want us to go into free
and then
Honorable.
We are going to have a similar situation of NABCO, where you have NABCO, where NABCO, where you have a situation where people
are panicking,
are giving hope that they are going to have something happening in their lives, only for them to get stuck somewhere. Market, and we will discuss it in the very near future.
Now, on the issue of charges, telecom charges going up.
You know, this government lied their way into office. They talk about non-taxes. They will not increase taxes, nuisance taxes. They will withdraw them. Of course, they did some cosmetic withdrawals. They say they will, what are they? There are so many of them.
Production and
they will create jobs using the private sector. They are not doing it. They will build one factory, one district. They will do all the kinds of things they promised to do.
One village, one dam.
They will not, the one village, one dam, and etc., etc. None of them would be happening. The one that is going to impact on their elections is what they are going to do. They criticize taxes and they call it the talk tax. They criticize it so much in Parliament. It was a heated debate when it came up. And when the issues about taxing the financial subsector came up, it was another point of critique, And yet, today, they are going to go into all of that. In fact, there's even a proposal that they should be taxing the banks for financial services, which they had withdrawn. I attended a program at IEA, and it came up very strongly. They brought somebody who talked, an expert, who said it was a very good idea, it was a good source of revenue, and etc., etc. And now they are talking about setting up a committee to look at it and to see how that can happen. You see, so everything that they said they would do, they have failed to do. Everything that they said they wouldn't do, they are doing it, including putting the...
Well, it can't be everything. They're doing free SHS amongst others. They said they'll do NABCO, they started.
Well, it's failing. It's something we all like, but it's failing.
But I want us to wrap up on this one.
So the impression we are getting is that this is a government that cannot sustain its own promises, that cannot reflect its own promises on the way it operates. And we have a situation also where, the people of Ghana are getting disappointed by the day. Every step in the way, there's either an issue of corruption, there's an issue of inefficiency, there's an issue of laxity, lethargy, things cannot happen the way we want them to happen. And we are saying that, look, in future, the citizens of Ghana should question people when they come to present all these lofty promises to the people. They have to question them, and you don't have to be deceived by government coming forward, people coming forward to say, we'll do this for you, we'll do that for you, because in the end, they will fail.
Okay.
Just like they are failing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now, Kojo, before you touch on the tax bit,
Yes.
Honorable raised a lot of things, and you rightly mentioned IMF cutting off, the hiring in the public sector. I'm sure there's a reason for that. I mean, we're spending so much.
Well,
so if we're talking about sustainably employing people, is this really the way to go, making it the public sector's responsibility instead of just pushing these guys into the private sector?
So let me start off on this IMF comment that you made, and the reason you said...
And the IMF also released a report a couple of weeks ago saying that, revenue is an issue. We spend a lot in the country and we're not creating enough revenue.
It says that we are not meeting our revenue
targets,
but
yes,
the fact is that we are raising a lot more revenue than the previous administration was doing, and that'll bring me into the tax conversation later. But the IMF freeze on public sector employment, and I'll give you President Mohammed's quote. He says that it's because they had chopped all the meat and it was down to the bone. These are not my words, those were his words. That's the economy they run, and later had to go for a bailout and left us hanging with all of these difficulties, which today the current administration is gradually getting us out for. And even in spite of all of that, you notice that our major promises that we made, while he seeks to convince everybody that he's feeling it's not working, the major promises are being rolled out. You have the very first chapter of our economy, which talks about a strong economy that matters and needs to be put back on scale. It's happening, and the numbers are out there. The ratings agencies are all talking about it. You have free SHS.
But on the micro level, Ghanaians are still struggling.
But that is where you come to part two. You have to do part one before you get to part two. You don't start a movie from part two. You have to fix the fundamental, and that's why it's in chapter one of our manifesto. When you are done with that, then you have fiscal space, you have resources to fund all of these programs. In spite of that, we are funding free SHS. Contrary to what he says, that free SHS is failing, it's not working. Go out there. 90,000 students who ordinarily would not have gone to senior high school last year went to school. Initially, they said, you haven't paid the contractors, you haven't paid this. Assuming we hadn't paid suppliers of free SHS last year, we're in the second year. There will be demonstrations all over the place by now. They've been paid. This year, 180,000 extra are having an opportunity to go to school with the employment of the double track system as well. So we are clear in our mind that we're working on our promises and we're gradually getting there. Now, I would have been happy if my very good, and he's my very good friend, don't be deceived by this
we know.
banter. I would have been happy if he had said, Kojo, we want to caution you guys to pay attention to this, pay attention to this, pay attention to that, so that it doesn't fail. When you say, I assure you, in 3 months, it will fail, you will see people on the street. It's as though you are being a prophet of doom and you are wishing that the thing will collapse. We don't build a country like that.
No, he's just critiquing, because perhaps he's seen some loopholes in the
assuring
system.
you is not critique.
Okay.
Critique is when you say, pay attention to this, pay attention to this, pay attention to that.
Okay, so for example, could we have paid attention to organizations like NBSSI and said, we're going to help these
We are. In the last session of Parliament, we
guys.
made so much money available for the Rural Enterprise Program, for the NBSSI and other agencies. And that's why I've said that argument will hold, assuming we are not doing anything and we say, NABCO is the answer. No.
Okay.
We are investing heavily. After you've improved the fundamentals, you're investing heavily in getting the economy to kick back growth.
Okay.
During my senior's time, growth slipped from where it was down to 3.6, 3.7.
Let's talk about the taxes, because we were told consumers wouldn't
again, he makes the point.
Won't pay the price.
6% growth. The World Bank says you can't have 9%
Again, he makes the point.
Let's move to the taxes.
Again, he makes the point that this is a government that has made promises but cannot find the money to fulfill the promises. We have to find the money to make the promises. We cannot borrow our way out of our promises. We have to consistently improve domestic resource mobilization.
Yeah.
And in so doing, what we have said, for example, is that we are not going to increase VAT. All we are going to do is to decouple the merger of the NHIL and the VAT, and to take away this input-output mechanism that has been occasioned by putting it together for both. Of course, that would incident in an increase in revenue. Everywhere you expect the producer and the consumer to literally share the incidence of tax. Depending on the elasticity of the product. Today, from what the telcos are saying, you get the impression that the telcos are of the view that telecom services are inelastic, and therefore they can pass it on 100% to the consumer. We don't exactly share that view, but I think it would be important for us to engage with them.
It's not something shared by the telcos alone, because even the beverage producing companies are also
So I think the important thing for us is to continuously engage with them and to share with them the reasons for which we believe that they, who make very deep margins on their funds, can absorb a part of that incident of tax. And even if it's a marginal part of it, that will be passed on to the consumer. That's understandable. We have a choice. we don't have a choice when it comes to raising local revenues, but we have a choice. Do the big players bear a bigger tab of the, or a bigger chunk of the tab? Do we encourage them, do we engage them to bear a bigger chunk of the tab? Or do we tell them that pass it on 100% to the consumer at home who's buying 1 cedi credit or 2?
So indirectly, you are accepting the fact that due to this arrangement, they will be making less profits.
We are making the point which we made, that by decoupling it, we will not increase VAT, but by decoupling it and not making it subject to input-output, we'll see an increase in revenues for the state. Now, that increase and its source is what has to be, in our view, shared between the producer and the consumer.
So the consumers will pay more.
Our view is that the producer should be bearing a good chunk of that tab and not the consumer then. And we have to engage with the telcos to try and reach that point.
Okay. Thank you very much. Information.
My view is that this is a government that says we are not going to go to IMF. We will break from the IMF.
They are coming out of the program.
Okay.
They are still there.
In December
2 years on, they are still there. They are saying they won't borrow money. They are borrowing a lot of money.
We won't borrow. We said we'll reduce our debt sustainability.
I think that's
so everything about what they are saying is like a lie, a big lie.
No.
Thank you very much.
Honorable they have a person who can sugarcoat what they are doing.
Thank you very much. He's the Honorable Member of Parliament for Wa Central, and of course we're also joined by the Information Minister Designate Honorable Kojo Oppong Nkrumah. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. Now, this has been the News Review.